So this video is going to be about loops. I'm sure that in your programming already you've experienced some times where you had to repeat yourself. You had to write the same code multiple times to accomplish what you wanted to do. That's something that we try to avoid, because what happens when you want to change something in one place and then so let's say that you created this statement and you had to copy and paste the statement multiple times, and then you want to change something in that statement, you'll have to change it everywhere you copied and pasted that. So it's something we really don't like to do. We never want to repeat ourselves. We always want to just say it one time and reuse that wherever we can. And loops are a really handy structure to help us do that. So some examples of what you may want to do. So let's say that you wanted to print out the multiples of 3. So this would be really tedious to have to print them all out individually, and you never could get all of them, and that's just unreasonable. We wouldn't want to do that. So it would be nice if, because we know how we could print out the multiples of 3, if we had some variable and then could print out that variable plus 3 every time and then set the new variable equal to that. We could do that, so you can imagine how that might be possible, but we'd have to have some looping structure to do it over and over and over again. Similarly, if you could ask the user, you could create some sort of math helper program where you ask, what is the answer to 2 plus 5? And we'll store that in answer. And then if the answer is 7, and we know we need to turn that into an int. So if the answer is 7, then print, you got it. Otherwise, maybe you want to ask them again. And if they got it right that time, then maybe you want to print, you got it. And if they didn't get it, then maybe you want to ask them again. Does that make sense? So I hope you see a pattern here. This is just going to get deeper and deeper and deeper, and we're limited in how often we can do this. If you did this 20 times and they needed 21 chances to do it, sorry, you didn't get it. They'll have to do your program again. So you can see how this is just unreasonable. We can't really work like that. So these loops are really handy to help us do that. So how do we create a while loop? So that's what we're going to work with today, is a while loop. The way that a while loop works is you say, while some Boolean condition is true, do some command. And the way that looks is you say, while some condition is true, do something. Whoa, I messed that up. Something. So we can have some variable condition that's set to some Boolean value, and then we'll just keep doing this thing while that condition is true. So that's how you would create something like that. And the Boolean condition can be anything. I mean, right here it's really not very interesting because I just set it to be true. But we can have it be some sort of expression, and I'll show you some of these. So what can we do with it? Just these examples that we did earlier, let's say that we had some variable and we wanted to say while num is less than 100. So we want to print out all the multiples of 3 that are less than 100. So let's try that out. So we'll print num. Well, actually, first we need to increase num. So num plus equals 3. And I don't think we've talked about this yet, but here's this operator, the plus equals operator. What that does, it's essentially a shortcut for num equals num plus 3. So I could do this instead of that. But it's a shortcut, and I like shortcuts, so I'm going to do that. So now we're increasing 3 every time, but I actually want to do it after I print, because I want to print 3 first. So anyway, not really important, but that's what we're going to do. So let's try running this program. There we go. Those are all the multiples of 3 less than 100. And that was really, really simple. I didn't have to write out, I don't even know how many are here, but I didn't have to write out all of these multiples and figure it out because the computer can figure that out. We can just have the computer figure all these things out for us, so I don't have to write these print statements over and over again. So we could also do the same thing, that other program that I was mentioning earlier, where we could say, and let me just copy and paste that so I don't have to. Copy and paste is handy. I don't want you to think it's bad, but it's bad when I'm using this. We're not using it up here. Okay, so it wouldn't be good if I'm using it here and using it here. There are ways to get around that. Loops are one of those. So first I'm going to say answer equals that. And then I'm going to say while answer does not equal 7. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to let's see here, answer. Okay, so the way that this is going to work is answer equals 0. And while answer does not equal 7, what if it was 7? Would this ever execute? The answer is no, because answer would equal 7, and so this while loop would never, so since answer already equals 7, there's no need to do the while loop. So that's why I set it to 0. So answer equals 0, and while answer does not equal 7, we're going to ask the user, what is the answer to 2 plus 5? We're going to convert that to an int and store it in answer. So I hope that makes sense. So let's try running that program. So what is the answer to 2 plus 5? 7. Oh, I shouldn't have I should put the wrong answer so that we can see what that is. So the answer to 2 plus 5, let's try 3. So it did it again. You can see that it printed that answer out again. I'm sorry, I hate really bad prompts, so I'm gonna make this prompts a lot better. So okay, what is the answer to 2 plus 5? We tried 3, that was wrong. Let's try 8, that's also wrong. 10, 12, 2, 7. 7's the right answer, that's when it stops. So you can kind of see there are a few things you can do with while loops, and I hope you can see that they're really handy. You can do basically whatever you need to do with them that you would typically repeat yourself. So if you're ever going to repeat yourself or do something that's pretty much the same, you can see how these aren't exactly the same. I'm not printing 3 over and over and over again. I'm printing multiples of 3. So I'm actually doing something that's slightly different, but it's pretty much the same. It's virtually the same thing. So loops are really handy that way. So this last thing is to beware of the infinite loop. I hope you can see that I did that right here. This, if we were to run that program, would execute infinitely. It would never stop because condition is never going to not be true. I set it to true here and I never change it. So since that's the case, it would always execute. So I want to show you an example. In your coding environment, you got to be really careful. Do not create infinite loops. I'm not going to show you an infinite loop in the coding environment because I've had problems with that. Sometimes it makes it so that your cloud environment will freeze on you. So I'm going to show you in my own environment here. I've created an infinite loop. It's the same thing pretty much. So let's try running this program. This is on my own computer. So let's see. We'll run that, and you can see that this is just executing hello, hello, hello over and over and over and over again. It's going to keep doing it forever. And the only way that I can stop executing hello is by pushing Control-C. And it doesn't matter if you're on a Mac or Linux or Windows. Press Control-C, and that will break you out of your infinite loop. You can see that there's an error that was thrown here. You can see the Control-C right there. There's a little Control-C character. So that happened, and then it still printed out 5 times. And then it actually, Python got the message and said, oh, I guess I'm supposed to stop because there was a keyboard interrupt. That's the error that you'll see when you do a Control-C on a running program. So any program that's running, you can press Control-C and it will stop. So you got to be aware of the infinite loop. So anyway, I hope that these loops are interesting to you. You'll need them in your homework. You'll need them if you're going to ever become a programmer and do interesting programs. You just can't do anything interesting without loops. So next time we're going to talk about the for loop. It's a little bit different than the while loop. They're pretty much the same thing, but a little bit different. So anyway, thank you.